It's absolutely packed with the fundamental rules of sort of building relationships. And I think if you're any sort of management, leadership, or if you're a business owner, business is relationships, I reckon.
Yeah, totally. Really, you struck on something earlier, Lockie, about there was this real avoidance of conflict. And I think certainly going back decades ago, that was much more pronounced. I think people were just generally less direct. Like you read, there were some letters throughout the book and they were just talking around things. Like they're talking very, obviously with much more eloquent language than what we probably use today in writing an instant message across Slack to someone.
How good are letters from back in the day? They're like poetry almost, We lost all that. We never, now we're basically going back to hieroglyphics.
Emojis.
We're regressing.
We are too. We put no thought into them either. We just send a couple of emojis, and it's like the emojis are representing emotions that we're feeling because we haven't thought about it at all. See, being back then, also the value, like the price of paper was also a lot higher, and you probably paid more attention to how much of that you were using and wasting.
Interesting.
Something to bear in mind. So, one of the things that has clearly faded is this like indirectness, and so there was a few principles throughout the book, like call attention to people's mistakes indirectly, ask questions instead of giving direct orders, and the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. So I think there's still some truth that can be gleaned from these, but I also think there's like, if you are too indirect with people, particularly in this today, people don't read between the lines as much. You read some of those letters and they're almost cryptic. You're like, I don't even know what he's pointing to as being the problem here.
It's funny because that's now what some people have that problem when cross-culturally when doing business with Japan and China. That's that their business culture or culture in general perhaps is much more subtle.
Yes.
But the US in particular is more blunt, isn't it?
It very much is, yeah. Well, that was one of the big things out of Shoe Dog when Phil Knight was dealing with the Japanese. He had to he didn't even understand what was even happening in his negotiations initially. You couldn't, and they would walk out of the room as though no deal had been struck, and then a couple of days later he'd find out that they had struck a deal. He's like, "Oh, we did strike a deal." It's
very different.
Crazy. Very, very different.